I decided to do an action research project, which allowed me to take an in-depth look at the performance assessments that are employed in the classroom. Benefits to using action research. It encourages evidence-based discourse, so I have a lot of data now to back up what I'm about to share with you. It professionalizes teaching. Some people think of teaching as kind of a working class job, whereas in other countries around the world, teachers are revered and they're thought of as, you know, educating the youth, so they're very important people. So this kind of gives a little more oomph to our profession. Gives us tangible evidence that we are making a difference. So when you see the results, you'll see that what we're doing really is impacting students in the classroom. And most importantly, the action that's taken after the research is complete. So I learned some things from this research that showed me changes that I can make in the classroom. So it's informing my practice. Limitations to action research. The results that I've gotten from the study are not generalizable to other schools. Runlet Middle School is different than other schools, but it can establish best practices and it can inform other teachers about ways to make this process work better. And there's also no one correct way to conduct action research. And at the end, I'll give some recommendations for further studies and some challenges I met along the way. So as I mentioned, we are here at a large urban middle school in central New Hampshire. Within the classrooms, the students are grouped heterogeneously, and participants in this study were enrolled in 5 separate science classes taught by me, the researcher. And so in order to get the study going, I received written permission from the, at the time, interim principal. And all of the participants in the study and their parents, I sent letters home that had to be signed by the students and their parents. Out of my 115 students, 2 opted out. So we have had 113 agree to participate in the study. I created pre and post surveys, qualitative and quantitative surveys, and I'll share with you. This is a copy of the quantitative survey, and so you'll see that there are a number of questions on there, and I'll address that shortly. They also had a content assessment, a pre and post assessment. They got the same survey before and after administration of the performance tasks. They got the same content assessment before and after, so I can see where they made gains. And the results. As far as the quantitative survey, you can see there are 24 questions that are phrased as statements. Students were asked to rank their opinion of each statement using a scale of 1 to 4. 1 is strongly disagree, 2 is disagree, 3 was agree, 4 was strongly agree, which I need to fix. They were anonymous, but I asked students to write their student identification number on them so that I can match them before and after the study and see particularly which students made gains on the content assessment, as well as which students changed their opinion on science as a whole. The quantitative survey questions could be grouped into 4 sections. The first section was their overall opinion of science class. The second section was the opinion of different learning techniques employed in science class. Third section, opinion of usefulness of the content that they learned in science class. And the fourth section, gauge their confidence in their science process skills. And what I found was that there was very little effect on the overall attitudes about science as a content area. Most students here already love science coming into class. After the performance tasks were administered, they still love science. Little effect on opinions of utility of information learned in middle school science. Overall, students had a general idea or opinion that what they're learning in science is useful in the real world. There were small differences, which I'll get into in a little bit. There was a larger shift in their opinions about learning techniques after doing these hands-on collaborative activities, and there was a larger shift in student confidence in their own abilities, which was really nice to see. The content assessment, which is the second page you see there, it was an assessment that consisted of 11 questions. 8 of them were multiple choice questions, and 3 of them were open response. The average score on this increased 13% over the course of the study, and a whopping 70% of students, 63 out of the 90 that I was able to match from the pre and post assessment, saw improvement between the pre and post assessment. 16% of students' scores remain the same. So 86% either remain the same or made gains. And now we'll move on to the discussion. So in the area of overall opinion of science class, students felt that science was more difficult after administration of the authentic performance assessment, which I found interesting. But I also thought of some possible reasons for that. The first reason is this was their first taste, these students, this was kind of their first taste of a PACE assessment in science. There's a lot of writing required. They're required to explain everything throughout the process. And I don't think students associate writing with science. Also, some students found the topic to be boring. The assessment that we gave, the main PACE assessment this year, was about soil analysis. And more than one student mentioned to me that they were not exactly enthralled with the topic. This particular task was the official PACE task for the year, and that is going into their permanent record. So it may have added extra pressure and stress and affected their opinions on the post-assessment. And the official assessment was also independent work. The lead-in activity was a group project, and this one they had to complete on their own. And as you'll see from the next part of the survey, or a couple parts later, students generally prefer working collaboratively with other students. Overall opinion of learning techniques. They had a very high preference for hands-on learning, and that was reinforced. They came in really liking hands-on labs, getting out, doing things in the science classroom, and even more students indicated that they liked that after this was done. There was a strong preference for collaborative group work, working together with other students. Most students already liked working with other students. They liked it even more as gauged by the survey after the assessments. Their opinions of having tests and homework in science class declined over the study period. We didn't really have any regular tests during the period, so that is understandable. What I found unexpected, though, their response to the statement, "Science is easiest when we explain what we are studying," remained the same, and they explained so much during the course of these projects. I expected to see some sort of difference there, either positive or negative, and I didn't. It stayed almost exactly the same. As far as students' overall opinion of the usefulness or utility of the science content, that also remained largely the same over the course of the study. Most students already found science to be useful. They knew it's going to be useful going on to high school and afterwards, and understanding today's world. There was a decline in the number of students who strongly agreed with being able to use skills from science class in other situations, which I found interesting since both of these tasks that they participated in were grounded in the real world. So I expected that they would think that their skills would be more transferable to the real world. And there was a decline in the number of students who strongly agreed with the importance of understanding the work done in science. And I have some ideas about why that might have been as well. This was the most exciting part for me, the overall confidence and abilities. There were 5 questions at the end of the survey asking them about how they felt about their abilities to form a testable question, to gather data to answer that question, analyze the results of an investigation, communicate those results, and then use those results to answer their original question. And every single one of those questions had upward trends. Everyone gained confidence in all of those, which was really nice to see. They got to practice those skills, have real applications of those skills, and it paid off. They felt more confident. And then if we look at the content assessment, as I mentioned before, 86% of student scores improved or remained the same. But there was one question on the content assessment that asked them to create a hypothesis for a scenario. And students demonstrated that they were better able to formulate a hypothesis after we did the performance assessments. Many more students used the if-then format. They were more specific, and more students were using common scientific vocabulary. And I have some examples of that here. Student 138054, their initial hypothesis was peanut butter will make her cookies better. It was about a girl who thought adding peanut butter to her already great cookie recipe would make them better. Peanut butter will make her cookies better. And then post-assessment, if we add peanut butter, then the cookies will taste better. So she incorporating that if-then. Student 137042, we had increased specificity. So already did a pretty good job on the pre-assessment. If peanut butter is added to the cookie recipe, the cookies will be better. Post-assessment, if I add 1 cup of peanut butter, then my cookie recipe will be better. So getting more specific with what this person was actually testing. And then common scientific vocabulary, like using increase or decrease. Pre-assessment, if Clementine adds peanut butter, her recipe will be better. Post-assessment, if the amount of peanut butter increases, then the tastiness of the cookies will increase. So using that format that they practice in class and that we practice during the performance assessments. So after completing the study, I reflected on challenges that I faced. The biggest challenge was student absences. We worked on this project for about 2 weeks in class. I had students who had concussions, I had students who broke bones, I had students who were out for various reasons. It's pretty hard to catch up on this outside of class because it's hands-on, we have the materials here. Also, the heterogeneity of the group was a bit of a challenge because we were prohibited from modifying the tasks. So for English language learners or students who typically take a modified test, that was just not allowable. However, any accommodations that were in their IEP, we were allowed to do. So if they wanted to work in a separate location, that was possible. If they needed the instructions read aloud to them, that was possible. But we just could not change anything else. New questions that I thought of while working on this. Did the authentic performance assessments cause content knowledge and student confidence increases, or are the gains that we're seeing correlated to the use of performance assessments with a different cause? Do authentic performance assessments accurately assess students' critical thinking skills? And what are the effects of authentic performance assessments that utilize the engineering design process on 8th grade science students? The assessment that we used was the scientific method. We have given engineering tasks before, and from my experience, they tend to be a little more engaging. And then additional recommendations, I think that a long-term study, either over the course of a full year or over several years, would be interesting to see what kind of effects we see during that time. And also conducting individual student interviews and getting a little oral feedback on what students thought of the process and how they think it might have impacted them. So in summary, I believe that the use of performance assessments in 8th grade science is beneficial to students. It gives them an opportunity to practice the skills they're learning in class. It increases their confidence in those skills and increases their content knowledge over the course of the time that they are performing these tasks, and it has given them an advanced ability to make predictions. I'd like to entertain any questions you may have now.